Outside the Box Reviews, I take back what I said. And Predator Week is continuing with the Bandai Tamashii Nations SH Monsterarts Heavy Armor Wolf Predator. And I guess I'm not completely taking back what I said, because it was the previous release of the Wolf Predator that I said I had absolutely no interest in getting. But I probably said I had no interest in getting this version too. And this is the Monsterarts take on a Predator figure. So this is an import figure, and I'd held off for quite a while on these. I'd originally seen Diego Doom's review of the first version and was really disappointed. I'd actually been looking forward to the figures, and when I saw what it really included and what wasn't there, in my opinion, my feelings about it dropped significantly. I posted a rant video at the time talking about how I wasn't interested, and then time goes by, I see it at my local movie stop, and I picked it up. So let's take a closer look and see if I was right for picking it up or if I should have listened to my own opinion. And to reiterate something I said back when I reviewed the Ultra Act Ultraman figure, also from Bandai Tamashii Nations, this figure, I'm kind of weirded out by the fact that it is a Monsterarts figure. To me, this kind of fits more as a Figuarts piece, coming with a lot of accessories and a lot of weapons. Monsterarts, primarily being kaiju, don't really come with that many accessories, but the stuff Wolf comes with really reminds me of the Ultra Act, even more than the Figuarts. However, Bandai breaks down their brands. This thing comes with a bunch of hands. We get a total of 11 different hands. And with this figure, it's very easy to tell left from right. His left hand is all spiky gauntleted, and his right hand is not. So for each side, we get a pair of flat hands, and they're pretty nicely detailed. You get the spots on the back of the hand, the black nails, the gauntlet's nice and shiny. The detail is pretty good, especially for how small they are, but these flat hands are used with one of the accessories to hold the shurikens. We get two open grabbing hands that are very cool looking. We have two hands with a wide grip to them to hold a larger accessory. Two hands with a tighter grip to hold a smaller accessory with kind of an awkward pose there. I always hate when the thumbs go down like that on action figures gripping. We get a pair of fists. Then we get this one additional hand. I think this is for the whip, but it also weirds me out because the paint detail is different. It's not as spotted as the other hands, which is kind of strange, but a one hand on its own. We get two different versions of Wolf's whip. Here we have the coiled up version, which is really nice. We have the brass kind of coloration of the handle there with the turquoise kind of gems in it. Nice silver whip, all coiled up. This isn't movable or anything. It's slightly movable, but not really intended to be. And then we have a peg here that we can line up with Wolf's waist. You can peg the whip right there for easy storage on his waist, then it will rotate and move around as you need it to. Wolf also comes with the full out extended whip, which is similarly detailed, same kind of paint job on it. And this is really cool looking. It is a softer material, a little more bendy, but there's no bendy wire in it from what I can tell. So you really can't pose it too much. It's also just going to be this slightly, almost completely out, but not quite look. But seeing that we have a curled up version, I think this is fine. It has a very nice sharp end to it as well. In similar fashion, we get two different versions of the Combi Stick. We have the retracted version, which is really nicely done. Great detail on the spearhead here and all the little fins coming off. Nice gold detailing to it. Silver highlights. And this does have a peg on it. Take a look at Wolf's back. We can see there's a peg on the armor. And we could pop that short Combi Stick on there for really nice storage on his back. The longer spear, well, it's the same thing, just extended out with these extra little silver bits in the middle. It does feel like it could be a little fragile because it gets pretty thin here towards the ends, so just something to be careful about. And of course, no peg here because he doesn't need it. Continuing on with the theme, we get a folded up and extended version of the shuriken. We actually get two of these each. Folded up shuriken is nicely done, very tiny, very compact, a nice gray plastic. It has a rubberized loop here. And you're probably sensing a theme here on Wolf's little loincloth. There's a hook, and you can hook that shuriken on there if you're not all thumbs like me. There we go. So we can have it on his belt, ready for use. A slight upgrade over the NECA one in theory, since you could have these removed and actually make it movie accurate, like he only has so many shurikens on him. To me, they're way too easy to pop off, and I'm also afraid I'm going to lose him if I'm posing the figure around with these on his belt. The fully extended out shuriken is glorious, really nicely done. Nice silvery plastic. The blades are very sharp. Once again, seemingly they could be a bit fragile. There is all kinds of little details sculpted in here that makes it really, really nice. Wolf comes with a little vial of the cleaner fluid, so it's a nice silver piece here with the a clear blue top to it symbolizing the liquid. And at the end of his bandolier here, he has a pouch so you could rest that inside, use later against the xenomorphs. All along the bandolier, we have these little proximity mines that he uses in the movie. Very nicely detailed little pieces. And as you can see, there's a bunch on the bandolier and they will peg and unpeg from it. So these also have the peg attached to them, so they're really not useful for anything in his hand unless you're creative with them. However, you can remove them from the bandolier to make it look like he's running out of mines. We also get 3 plasma casters. These 2 are designed to peg into the back, so they're fully articulated out. Lots of great detail on these, looking very, very clean and shiny and chrome. We do have a hinge here at the bottom and then one lower down. Unfortunately, these are just pegged in a weird way, so they actually pop apart pretty easily, so you gotta be careful when you're posing your Predator around with these. Once again, if you go to the back of the Predator, they'll just peg into holes there in Wolf's armor. For some reason, the peg here on this one seems a little smaller than the one on the opposite side, which is kind of strange. But they both peg in and stay pretty well. And this other one is based off the end of the movie where he's hand holding the weapon and firing it like a normal gun, so the handle's a little different, but it works pretty well. For the figure itself, we've got a lot to go over here, even just in the head alone. One thing I dislike about this sculpt is I feel like it doesn't accent the scar on his one eye quite as much as it should. It really doesn't look like there's much difference between the left and right side of his face. There should be some pretty heavy scarring here based on the movie. We do see that the one eye is duller than the other, and he of course is missing the top mandible there. See inside of his mouth here, he has wide open jaws. Some great detail on the inside of his mouth, looking very fleshy and nasty. However, these jaws are interchangeable, and the seam along the edge of his mouth is really distracting to me. But these jaws do pop right out, and they don't actually peg in so tightly that I'm not afraid they'll fall out on their own. Pop them right off his face, and then we could pop in a ever so slightly more closed version of the mandibles. These aren't completely closed, but they give him maybe a more relaxed look where he's not screaming. Top of the head has kind of a wonky paint fade to it, just kind of goes from green to black. It doesn't feel all that natural. There's a spiky crest up at the top. He does have some very nicely done dreadlocks. They're very, very soft rubber, and the little details on the dreadlocks are pretty darn nice. Now this head is removable, and we could pop in his masked head. Now I was prepared to go in here and say, oh, popping out the head isn't that much trouble. It hadn't been for me on my first attempt, but this time was actually pretty hard. You do have to make sure the little neck brace there stays low enough so that it pops on without blocking the ball peg. But once it's on, it stays on pretty tightly. The mask here is nicely detailed. Once again, I wish there was more damage over this eye. If I remember the movie correctly, there was scarring even on the mask, but the mesh looking eyes are pretty nice. I love the colors they picked for the mask itself. Got the little laser sight up there, all the detail through the top, but it's also missing the text. I believe there was text on the helmet for this Predator. So once again, missing a lot of detail here. Got the spikes across the top. It has its own set of dreadlocks, which are just as detailed as the original. Coming down the neck, we do have his bone trophy, which is nice, but it's actually pretty rigid. The plastic used doesn't really fall like a necklace unless it's facing the right direction. We have his rubberized bandolier here, holding all the mines we talked about before. His chest armor is actually, I believe, die cast, so it's a nice heavy metal there. Same with the shoulder piece, I believe. It's hard to tell if it's die cast or not. The chest piece, I'm sure. Shoulder might just be plastic. The netting is all sculpted on there and completely painted, which is very nice. The texture on the skin, it's well sculpted, but once again, I feel like the paint's lacking. I feel like it's a little blocky in the coloration and not nearly as sophisticated as it could be. The arms are nice. They do have some great scaly texture and some cool veins going through it. Some of the little warts and spikes all over him. Here on his arm, we have his gauntlet, and you can see this has no blades in it right now, and that's because the blades are a removable piece. So you can either put in the short blades here or the longer ones. And I really don't like this method of doing things. I know it probably keeps things more compact, but I'm really afraid these are going to fall out, and they don't even sit in well enough where they won't bend and come off at weird angles if you're not careful. So just something I'm really concerned about with this figure. Over on the other side, we actually have the wrist computer, and it actually opens, which is fantastic. We can see in here we have all the panels we'd expect in a Predator figure. There's no writing or anything. It doesn't look like it's lit up, but it's still pretty cool that it actually functions. On the back here, we do have his little backpack kit, not the full cleaner kit, but his tiny med kit. You can still see the rest of the armor is detailed out here. We have the rubberized flap here on his waist, and a more tightly sculpted piece over his ass. The loincloth comes around the front, some decent paint detailing in there. Legs continuing a lot of the same detail as the arms, very scaly looking. We have these armor panels on it, which actually move around a little bit, which I find odd. And there's leg armor, we got more spikes there on the back, clawed feet, and the clawed sandals to go with them. There's no detailing on the bottom of the feet, however. When it comes to articulation, it's what you'd expect from a Monsterarts or Figuarts figure. This figure is loaded. He has a ball joint at the neck, but also a ball joint at the lower portion of the neck, giving him, I guess, a double jointed neck, you could call it. He doesn't look very far up because of the dreadlocks, but you can kind of force it a little higher if you mess with it. But he will look pretty far down, and of course move his head side to side as well as tilt. The arms will go out to the side, not a whole lot, quite honestly. I'm actually surprised how little they go out. They will move forward and back very easily. Here on his other side, the armor is actually articulated, so it will kind of get out of the way when you're moving the arm out to the side, which is really nice, or forward or back, I guess. There is actually even kind of an armpit joint in here. I could see it a little more with this arm, but it doesn't give you a whole lot more range of motion. We do have a bicep swivel. We have a double joint at the elbow with a pretty good range of motion. The wrist is on a really cool system. It's like a dual ball jointed system that gives him a really nice range of motion here. You can go up and down, forward and back with it, as well as rotate. However, he kind of lacks the articulation to get himself into a really good looking pose where he's trying to activate his wrist computer, which is a bit of a bummer. In the torso, we have dual joints. We have one in the upper torso that lets him go forward and back, rotate a little bit of side to side, and a similar ball joint there at the waist, which will give you a good range of motion. The legs, very Figuarts style. They'll go forward, back, out to the side, and then you could drop that joint down and get an even bigger range of motion. However, because of the way the butt's sculpted, the leg will not move back pretty much at all, just forward and out to the side. It will also rotate up there at the hip. A nice double jointed knee, a ball joint at the ankle with a decent range of motion, as well as a hinge at the toe. And here's the Monsterarts Wolf Predator in the middle, next to the NECA Wolf Predator on the left, and the more modern body used by the Shaman Predator there on the right. And you can see he's definitely short, which is definitely disappointing, but something I knew from the beginning. I knew he wouldn't be in scale with my other Predators, but if you have a lot of the Figuarts Dragon Ball Z figures, or even some of the Figma figures, he'd probably fit in really good scale with them. And you know what, let's put that to the test. Here he is next to the Figuarts Goku and the Marvel Legends movie Ant-Man. And yeah, Goku's kind of bent down a little bit, but I feel like this actually works pretty well. So if you were a 6-inch figure collector, I think this Predator would actually work out spectacularly. Unfortunately, I'm a 7 to 8-inch figure collector, so he's short. So overall, it's really hard to rank this figure because it's technically a very well done figure. It has great sculpting, the articulation's superb, it comes with a bajillion accessories. And it's hard to know if my bias is coming a lot from the fact that it's not in scale with the figures that I love from the NECA line. It's one of those rare cases where in reviewing the figure, I feel like I dislike it more than I do when I'm actually just messing around with the figure and putting it on my desk. I even posted on Facebook when I got this figure that it was a great figure that I hadn't given a fair shake to. So I really don't know what it is now that I'm looking at it in my critical outside the box review eye behind the camera and finding it coming up so lacking. I honestly think it's a personal bias. And I think it's coming from the fact that I'm sitting right next to 3 shelves packed to the gills with the NECA figures. And it's not brand favoritism, it's literally a scale issue and some minor engineering issues that are bugging me so much on this figure. So you know what? I am going to recommend it because I think I could see enough through my own BS that it is a good piece. It's just maybe not a piece for me. But we'll get to settle this once and for all on the next installment of Predator Week because I'm going to do a full-on figure war between the SH Monsterarts Predator and the NECA releases. So in the meantime, make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also follow me on Facebook, link below. And stay tuned because Predator Week continues, and next time it's war.